Hey there. Today, we're going to look at the world a little differently through the eyes of a physical geographer. We're not just talking about maps and places. We're talking about seeing our entire planet as one single, dynamic, interconnected system. So let's just start with a simple image.
Okay, just take a second and look at this scene. At first glance, it's just a beautiful landscape, right? Mountains, some rocks, green pasture, blue sky. It almost looks like a painting, totally frozen in time. But what if I told you that this image is anything but still?
Because you see, when a geographer looks at this, they don't just see a pretty place. They see a story in motion. They see energy pouring in from the sun. They see materials cycling through rock and water. And they see these massive forces in a constant, delicate dance. So the question is, how do they see all of this hidden action?
Well, it all starts with a really simple but incredibly powerful idea: thinking in systems. To even begin to understand the complexity of that landscape, or, our entire planet, we need a framework. And for a geographer, that framework is the system.
So, what is a system? It's basically just a collection of things, parts or processes that all interact with each other to work as a single coherent whole. The keywords there are interacting and unit. It's not just a random pile of stuff. It's a machine where all the parts are connected and working together.
Now, systems basically come in two main flavors. You have an open system, like a tree. It's constantly exchanging both energy and matter with everything around it. Sunlight, water, gases, you name it. Then you have a closed system, which only exchanges energy. And for the most part, our planet Earth is a closed system when it comes to matter. I mean, we've got all the rock and water we're ever going to get. But when it comes to energy, it's a completely open system with a constant massive flood of energy coming in from the sun.
Okay, so if Earth is this one giant, complicated system, how do we even start to wrap our heads around it? Well, geographers break it down into four huge interacting subsystems. They call them spheres, and these are basically the major players on our planetary stage.
First up, we've got the atmosphere. That's the air, the gases, the weather. Then there's the hydrosphere. That's all the water on Earth in every form: ice, liquid, vapor, everything. The lithosphere is the solid ground beneath our feet, the rocks, the soil, the landforms. And finally, there's the biosphere, and that's us and every other living thing. The real magic, the really interesting stuff, happens where these four spheres meet and interact.
Let's just zoom in for a second. The hydrosphere, for example, isn't just a static pool of water. It's a massive global engine, and it's powered by that constant flow of energy from the sun. This engine drives one of the most important cycles on the entire planet.
And this diagram shows that engine in action. You've got sunlight, that's the input, which causes water to evaporate up into the atmosphere. The system's response is the formation of clouds, and eventually that leads to another input, this time back down to the surface: precipitation. It's a perfect example of the hydrosphere and atmosphere constantly talking to each other in a never-ending cycle.
And believe me, the lithosphere has its own grand cycle. Though this one plays out over millions of years, rocks are constantly being broken down, moved, and then laid down somewhere else. Over huge amounts of time, that material gets buried, compressed, and basically cooked into brand new rock. Sometimes it even melts all the way down into magma and starts the whole process over. It's the planet just constantly recycling its own foundation.
So what about the biosphere? Where do we fit in? Well, this quote really nails it. Life isn't just a passenger on this planet, we actively shape it. Plants pull carbon right out of the atmosphere, their roots break up the lithosphere to make soil, and they release water vapor that affects both the hydrosphere and the atmosphere. It is absolutely a two-way street.
So we have our four spheres. But just knowing they exist isn't enough. The most critical part, the part that makes it all work, is understanding how they connect. And the mechanisms that link everything together are what we call cycles and feedback.
So when there's an input or a change in a system, the system responds. And that response can then feed back and influence the original change. These feedback loops are really the engine of how systems work, and they come in two main types: ones that stabilize and ones that amplify.
Here is a classic example of a stabilizing or negative feedback loop. So imagine an input. More sunlight starts heating up the ocean. The response? More ice melts and more water evaporates. But that extra evaporation creates more clouds, and that's the feedback. Because what do clouds do? They reflect sunlight back out into space. So the final result is that the system actually cools itself down, counteracting the initial warming. It's like a planetary thermostat.
Now, a positive feedback loop does the exact opposite. It's a runaway train. It takes an initial change and just cranks it up, creating a kind of snowball effect. So, for example, as ice melts, the darker ocean water left behind absorbs more heat, which then causes even more ice to melt. This kind of loop can push a system away from its stable state.
And when you put all of these feedback loops and interactions together, you get these massive, planet-wide cycles. A really key one is the biogeochemical cycle. It's a fancy name, but it just describes how crucial elements for life, like carbon, are constantly moving between the air, the water, the rock, and every single living thing. It's pretty much the circulatory system of Earth itself.
Okay, so now that we have this new toolkit, this way of thinking about systems, spheres, and feedbacks, let's go back to where we started. Let's look at that landscape again, but this time let's try to see it with a geographer's eyes. Here it is. It's the same image, but what's different now is our perspective. What can you see happening? Where are those four spheres interacting? What processes are at play?
Now we can really see it. We can see the atmosphere and the clouds, part of that huge water cycle. We can see the hydrosphere, locked away as snow, just a frozen reservoir of water waiting to melt and flow. We can see the lithosphere and those incredible layers of rock. That's a story told over millions of years by the rock cycle. And of course, we see the biosphere, that green pasture, life that absolutely depends on the soil, the water, and the air all around it.
So here's the crucial point, the main takeaway. It was never just a picture. It's a snapshot of a living, breathing system. Every single part you see is connected to every other part, through flows of energy and cycles of matter that have been going on for billions of years.
And that leaves us with a final, pretty deep question to think about. If everything is truly this connected, from the smallest plant to the global climate, where does the ripple effect of a single change, or a single human action, ever really stop?